All right, so I'm going to be reviewing today's trades. It's the last day of July before we head into the end of the last month of summer. So today was a pretty rough morning because I got up like right before market open and I couldn't get my second screen on. And my second screen, well, it's more like my primary screen. On my PC setup, my top screen turns on first, and then I got to sit there and kind of spam the power button on the second one, the bottom screen. That's the one I actually do TradingView on and Discord on. So I sat there for like freaking 8 minutes or 9 minutes sitting there screwing with it. Was super annoying. Um, but I ended up turning it on. So I couldn't place a trade until roughly 10 minutes after market open. Super annoyed. That was not good for my psychology. But regarding the pre-market analysis, I didn't really get a chance to do any because I couldn't get my computer on. But once I got my computer on, I realized, hey, there's a gap here on ES. And you guys know how I feel about. I'm missing like some of my indicators. You guys know how I feel about future gaps on the futures charts. They fill. Right now we're really far away at this point, but as market opens, all of a sudden we are no longer very far away. NQ also had a gap. It fills it immediately, as you can see here, and I can't trade. So ideally, I would have liked to enter puts on after the first candle of the market open because NQ had its gap here, but I couldn't. And I kind of watched ES get down. We bounced. When we invalidate the bounce, I would have been able to be triggered into a trade. Right here, I would have been able to get triggered into a trade. I would have 100% entered puts here um, if I hadn't already entered puts on the first candle of market open. But I couldn't, and that was extremely frustrating. I was, I was technically able to enter because my Thinkorswim is on my top screen, but it was covered by a couple other tabs, and I was still trying to get my bottom screen on. So I missed out on this one, which was really, really, really annoying. But I did finally get the screen on, and it wasn't until roughly, hang on, here on this candle. This is where I filled my first trade, SPX puts here. Now I did go half size because this is not the fill that I wanted. This is not the risk to reward that I wanted. So I did go half size here, which ended up helping me. But looking back on it, I don't think I really needed to go half size. But this is kind of where I wanted to stop out here. And you can see it's really bad risk to reward. So I'm going to half size, thinking it may bounce. As you can see, ES is a lot weaker than NQ, but I'm hoping NQ is going to put in bearish consolidation. I'm hoping that NQ maybe goes up like this, sweeps the high. I average down here on ES, which should be somewhere up here. And then we continue down to fill this gap on ES. So that's the grand plan. That's what I'm thinking is likely to happen. Well, we had PMI at 645, and it right before that, 2 minutes before that, you can see that ES flipped strong, NQ flipped weak. We did not get down with this ES red candle, right? We just didn't. We didn't do it. So I'm bearish. But at this point, you can see that ES isn't going down as much as NQ. I'm like, oh, that's a problem because obviously the market's oversold. But I held into PMI. These buying wicks are an issue. Boom, PMI happens. I get another bearish candle. We almost filled the gap. I was up like 20% on these SPX puts. So I was willing to just sell it for half size win. But then we reversed to the upside, unfortunately. So I took my average down when we swept this high because I needed a higher high. I believe it was actually into this candle I averaged down. Yeah, this selling wick right here I averaged down. That brought my average to, I believe it was two. Hang on. I need to check. I don't remember what my average was. Um, so I remember averaging down at 1.9. I entered at 2.4. Okay, so my average was roughly 2.2. 2.15, I think. Yeah, it was like 2.15. No, it absolutely wasn't. It was closer to 2.2, I remember. Anyways, my average was somewhere around 2.2. Here's the trade now. PMI didn't look super bullish to me. But clearly it was because I stopped out of this trade early, actually. I stopped out early. Right as this next candle started flipping green, I stopped out early. Because you can see this isn't good. I actually got a pretty good stop loss on this. I stopped out for only like minus 25-ish% loss, full size loss right here because what happened, we put in mini bullish consolidation here. I'm like, well, that sucks. If this comes back down, I will enter puts. That gap still needs to finish filling, right? And if I were to edit this gap, I would edit it to here because that's where the gap is now. But now I'm leaning bullish. I'm 100% leaning bullish. We've invalidated majority of the drop. I have this mini pivot right here, and then we have supply. So ideally, I'm waiting for bullish consolidation. Because if I get bullish consolidation, either a pennant or a small flag, I would love to enter SPX calls for supply. ES is a lot stronger than NQ. Both look like they're bouncing. We did get a proper bottom there. And on ES, it didn't validate pretty much this entire drop from market open. So that's what I'm looking for at the moment. And we continue going up. And then we get two consolidatory candles here. And unfortunately, I actually did genuinely try filling calls right at the beginning of this green candle, but it missed my limit order and took off. So that was really annoying. So not only did I start today being late to market open due to technical difficulties, and to be honest, I wouldn't have lost money on this trade because I would have entered here or here on NQ because NQ was a bit weaker. And realistically, I would have at least trimmed down here when we reached the gap. And you guys know me, I always trim before news, pretty much. Well, I didn't trim before news today because I was pretty much break even and I was half size. There's no point of trimming. But if I were in, I would have trimmed before news. It would have been an okay trade. It would have either been very small green or break even. So there's that annoyed me. And then, of course, having green to red trade sucks. And now I miss my fill on calls. So this morning is not a good morning. I'm not having a good time today, which is one of the reasons I didn't hop in voice to live trade. Also, you guys annoyed the hell out of me. Like, guys, my first trade, I alerted 63.55, meant to say puts, but I accidentally typed a C. And then everyone and their mother starts spamming reactions like the sky's falling out. Guys, use your brains. Like, I don't know if you guys, like, your brains aren't wrinkly this morning, but the strike is 80 points less than where we're at on ES. Obviously, it's supposed to be puts. Obviously, it's a typo. Like, come on. Put in the strike. Look up the contracts. You'll see that the calls are going to be like $100 a call, and the puts are going to be right in that 240, 250 range. So that also annoyed the hell out of me. So that's why I didn't hop in voice this morning to live trade my options. Just low temper today. But anyways, so this sucked. I'm like, well, if we come back down, I guess I'll enter. Because it could put in a cup and handle. But I missed my calls here. And they went up like 30%. But look at this. We put in a perfect double top. Now, this isn't a super major pivot right here, but it's solid. It's a solid perfect double top. I'm like, all right. On this pullback, I'm scaling in. So I started scaling into calls. I filled initially at 2.3, and I filled the last at 2.1 here on this buying wick. Here was the trade, roughly here. It was like right here. And I'm looking for, at minimum, this yellow line to break. But because ES has been stronger, I think supply is a bit more likely. And here's the trade, right? This is a great trade. First trade was a great trade. Now, the entry was okay. It was the first trade I took was still very, very, very likely to play out. But I wouldn't call it a great trade because I missed where I really wanted to enter because of my technical difficulties. But this is also a great trade with a great hypothesis. And yeah, I'm very bullish for ES to break this level if we come all the way back up. And it looks like the market's actually trying to do that right now. So if we come all the way back up, very bullish for it to break this level. In case you couldn't tell, I end up stopping out of this trade. The calls started chopping a ton. I was barely green right here, even though I entered all the way down here, which is a massive red flag. When you see calls chopping like that, that means everyone's selling their calls. There's net outflow on calls, and that's dropping the implied volatility, which lowers the premiums of the calls. So we are chopping a ton, which is a huge red flag. But this is beautiful. Like, this is a beautiful bull. Like, it can't look better than this. We made lower lows with buying wicks. We've invalidated the drop. This is a 10 out of 10 likely setup, right? Especially with the perfect double top, at least to clear the yellow line, right? But no, got unlucky again and ended up stopping out. Not here yet. We put in this buying wick, and this buying wick is what kept me in. I think my stop loss was actually closer. So this buying wick barely kept me in. But the second we invalidate this bounce, I said I'd stop out, and we end up invalidating it, unfortunately. I thought I had a chance. In fact, I was willing to add to this trade to bring it to 1.5x position size if we got to 64.48 bullishly, because it would have been so likely. If I lost, that's fine. I don't care. But so likely. I'm talking 98% chance to hit. But it missed it, so I didn't add. Still full position size. And thought I was going to add, but didn't. And I stopped out right at the end of this candle because it invalidated the bounce. Right at the end of this candle, I actually filled some in the next candle, unfortunately. And that was a big loss. Now, granted, my stop loss wasn't far away at all. I mean, I entered here, and I stopped out roughly here. And this is also why I didn't let it get all the way back down to where my stop loss was, like down here. I stopped out early when I assumed it was going to get there. This is only 15 ticks on ES. This was a 42% loss on my calls, and way more if you held even for 20 more seconds. That's how bad the chop was. My average was 2.25, and I stopped out at 1.3. Super shitty. So this morning's just not going great. Both of these setups are very likely to break, by the way. This yellow line is going to break in the future 100%, obviously, because it's above price action, but I wouldn't be surprised if it breaks like either really late today would be surprising. We fell a long ways. But either really, really late today or tomorrow, that double top should break. And we still have a gap on ES. Gaps fill, especially on futures. I'm still bearish. So I lost twice in a row. Both trades were green to red, plus the annoying computer situation early. And I'm still bullish and bearish for these PTs to hit. So that's pretty freaking annoying. But I'm like, all right, NQ is clearly weaker than ES now. It's invalidated pretty much half the move. Pretty much what I said is PMI screwed everything up, it looks like. I'm actually liking puts for NQ new low of day, though. I just need these buying wicks to invalidate. So we get buying wicks here on NQ. If we invalidate the buying wicks, I am in. We get a little bounce, and then we invalidate the bounce, and I'm in. I think I actually entered a little bit early on this candle. Let me see. It's the exact candle that I entered on. No, I entered early onto this candle. So we were getting lower lows with buying wicks. We invalidated the bounce. You guys know me. That's pretty much where I enter every time, or I try to. And I filled roughly like here. Something like that. Now, obviously, my P2 was NQ new low of day. And it was looking good. But keep in mind, I didn't actually plan on selling a bunch at NQ new low of day, because I am still really bearish for ES to fill the gap, right? Which is this gray box down here. Now, it started off great, and then this big bounce happened, and I'm like, well, we may have another green to red trade on our hands, unfortunately. So, and keep in mind, we were chopping down this whole time. This wasn't really a bearish drop. I was kind of thinking with the way this was dropping, NQ is going to hornswoggle me, come up, form a big bear pennant, and then come down. Like, that's what I was thinking was likely to happen. But I didn't really plan on taking another trade after this. So, green to red trade, and then it started looking great. So great, in fact, that I even entered SPX puts as well. Now, that came a bit later. I did that right around 739, 740. We hit new low of day on NQ. I did take an okay trim. Not really a super heavy trim, though, because I was bearish on ES, but I couldn't not trim because we were chopping down. So I pretty much had to trim. Here's us bouncing on ES, and I filled puts on this candle. A little early on puts. I didn't quite wait for the last 10 seconds of the candle and put in this buying wick, but same thing, it invalidated the bounce. Now, keep in mind, I only filled half size on these SPX puts because I was already in QQQ put. So even though I'm confident it's likely to get there, I'm never going to expose myself to a loss I'm not willing to take. And by entering SPX half size between both positions, I'm in less than a 1.5x size position. So I'm not like double down or anything. I'm not overexposed. It's fine, right? But this ended up just working out freaking great, man. Like it was just great. I didn't know it was like I was fully look at the way this is dropping. I was fully expecting a big bounce right before, and then it comes back down because typically chopping down is bullish, right? Price action is chopping down. But the steeper you chop down and the longer you chop down for, the more likely it is to fail, and you end up getting a stop loss rate. And that's exactly what happened. Not only did we fill the gap, which I did trim on, but my next PT was NQ demand, and I was real like I held a very decent amount for NQ demand. And you guys know me, I usually don't hold trades very long. I'm not that guy that ever goes for home runs. I don't get very many 100% plus trades. And if I do, I'm in a very light position. I was still in a decent position because the demand happened to perfectly line up with the 61.8% fib. So to me, it looked very likely to get there. As you guys know, the 61.8 fib is like my favorite one. And to me, it looked very likely to get there. And it did end up getting there. So obviously, I trimmed a decent amount. But once it got there, I sold everything. Boom. Sold here. And my day ended up flipping green. Very green, actually. Not like incredibly green because those losses were major. But I ended up decently green by like a couple of solid trades. Like a couple of 20 to 25% green trades is what I ended up. Because my first trade was minus 23%. My second trade was minus 43%. So that's minus 60, that's minus almost 70% in the first two trades. Full size positions, mind you. So I was pretty red this morning. But then I got 145% on QQQ puts here and 166%. And I didn't sell everything. I didn't sell much when NQ hit low of day. So I held a decent amount to that point. I sold the rest here. It did end up getting a nice bounce, which I thought, okay, 61.8 may play out. The 61.8 rule may play out, which means it should go 61.8% back the other way. So that would put your PT for longs all the way up here at new high of day. Almost at new high of day. All the way up here. So I thought it was going to run, but obviously I was done. It didn't. We ended up continuing to drop, which is crazy. I didn't really see a bunch of news as to why we dropped or anything. I didn't see anything like that. But it ended up being a really good day. So very happy. It still bugs me though because if the first two trades played out, or at least the second trade, like the second trade really should have played out. Really low odds that it didn't, but it makes sense why after seeing this drop, it makes sense why calls were chopping so bad and why all the big players and institutions were dumping SPX calls. And someone in a different server said their SPY calls were chopping a ton too. Makes sense why it happened. And to that, I can just say thank God that we have good enough psychology to honor stop losses no matter what. Because those not only does it save me from a trade going to zero, but it gives me the opportunity to take advantage of this move. But that was my morning. It was a very, very rough morning to start. I was not having a good time. But it ended up very nice. And it's a really good thing. It feels really good if I take a loss on a solid alert, that's likely because the gap doesn't fill or something, but I remain verbally and publicly I remain very biased for that gap to fill later on. Even if I'm not in the trade, seeing that gap fill or that thing that I expected to happen just later on, I mean, it still validates the TA, right? And just, continues to prove that my TA is freaking fantastic. And even though I may stop out on a trade, if you run the stats, roughly 80% of my trades that I stop out on, my bias ends up playing out later on. Which doesn't matter. It's not like I'm going to get back in. That's me breaking rules, and it's not like I'm not going to stop out. But it's just nice to see that, my TA is good. But that was my morning. This is bullish consolidation on NQ, or trying to be. More so on ES. That's perfect double top on ES right here. So, very bullish. This is pretty much the same setup that I had earlier, except this time it should play out because what are the chances two very likely setups don't play out back to back? It's very low, right? So this should easily break the yellow line and continue up. But with that being said, does anyone have any questions regarding any of today's trades or analysis? Yeah, and Raphael, visit this channel. No questions. Everyone's good. All right, now type in chat. Did you guys catch the drop this morning? How do you guys do this morning? Because granted, I got very unlucky on my first two trades, but price action was really nice, which sucks. It sucks when price action's really nice and you still end up red. That's just how it happens sometimes. It's rare, but it happens. Like, this is a beautiful drop. This is a beautiful entry that I missed, unfortunately. This was a beautiful gap down here to give you bearish bias. This was a beautiful, perfect double top with gorgeous bullish consolidation. Like, today's price action was beautiful. And that's also added to why I was so annoyed this morning. Because, like, price action's so good, I'm sitting here losing money, you know? But it just happens sometimes. Reams caught the majority of it. DH caught it. Nice job, guys. Glad to see that. Yeah, man, I caught a lot. I even traded a little bit of futures. Live futures trading maybe making a comeback. I'm going to continue testing my second and third hour trading strategy. My concern is it's not going to give me enough trades, but we're going to see. Now, with live futures trading, we will be going back to the OG days. So all you people that are watching these YouTube videos, the live futures trading will be streamed on YouTube. So all you free Aurora members, all you people in other servers, you guys will be able to hang out and learn. Now, granted, I stopped trading the second hour of futures back in January. So I used to live, as you guys remember, I used to live trade the second hour of futures live on YouTube every day for almost a year last year. I forgot about that. From like, what was it, April or May, all the way to January of this year, I live traded futures every day. But I just kept losing money in winter. The way I trade the first hour, you guys know how I trade the first hour, how profitable it is. I traded that same way during the second hour, and I had multiple red months on futures. Like, damn near every month was red, October to January. I had one green month, which was December, which is lucky, right? Because I got some payouts in December and whatnot, so I was green. October, I think I was pretty close to green. Or yeah, I think I was barely green. But like November, January, February, it just wasn't working anymore. The market changed, wasn't able to make money during the second hour of trading. So I stopped that. And that's what led me to create my afternoon strategy. And that printed from frickin' February to April. And then I stopped trading it late April because I went out of town, I got engaged, I started this massive trade arena project, just my attention went elsewhere, and I wasn't as available for the afternoons. But now it may be back. So anyways, I'm going to look into live trading the second hour. What that means for us, for you guys watching this recording or attending this, the trade reviews aren't going to happen at this time anymore because I'm going to be trading futures, right? So obviously, you know, trading futures live is more entertaining anyways, which means at some point later in the day, we'll be doing these trade reviews if I can remember. Maybe close to market close, maybe after market close. I'm not sure yet, but we'll be doing these trading reviews on my options trades another time. Type in chat, how's that sound? Does it sound like a plan? Do you have another strategy? I'm testing some, Ecut. I'm testing some. I don't want to trade. Keep in mind, I would love to, in a perfect world, I would have another Bryce trade futures during the first hour when I'm trading options. I'd be a lot richer than I am now. I'd be making twice as much, more than that. But I am unable to trade futures and options at the same time. I always make mistakes. I always miss entries. It's too much. Now, if I didn't have to alert, if I wasn't committed to alerting my options trades, I can do it, right? But I can't trade options, and trading options and alerting already like takes up everything. I've tried, even though I have a million monitor, like a million feet of monitor space, I can't do it. And unfortunately, the way I trade the first hour flipped unprofitable during the second hour during the end of last year. I assume it's profitable again. I assume it's a phase because I traded that way for a while. But that's when I made the shift to a more mechanical future strategy. And that's what I plan on continuing to stick with, a mechanical future strategy. Because, you know, if I create mechanical, solid, statistically backed future strategies, all you guys are going to make money from them. Unless your psych sucks and you can't execute. By the way, it's almost like I just said this trade would play out. I mean, this trade was so likely to play out. What are the odds that you lose twice in a row in the same setup? Very unlikely. But if you're a new trader, you don't know the stats of your trades, you have no idea that this is a likely trade to play out, and you probably lose your mind over it. And now you become scared to enter this one. Awesome job, David. Nice result. So, anyways, yeah, I'm gonna keep you guys updated. That stuff's gonna start in August, so August is gonna be a very big month for everyone. All right, I will see you guys later. You guys have a blessed rest of your day. We have a lesson after market close, and I will let you guys know when this recording is posted. But all right, I will see you guys later.